Hello, and welcome. The day is coming to a close, and it is time to let the noise of the world gently fade away. Settle in, find a comfortable position, and allow your mind to quiet itself. As you do, it is always a comfort to imagine where these stories might be heard. We would love for you to leave a comment, telling us where you are listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. And if you wish to be notified when future stories are ready for you, do feel free to subscribe. Tonight, we are going to embark on a quiet journey, a journey across a vast and peaceful land, painted in the deep greens of ancient forests and the cool blues of countless lakes. We are traveling to Canada, not to rush through its cities, but to drift slowly through its story, to uncover the gentle whispers of its history and the quiet marvels of its existence. Our story tonight will be woven from 100 quiet details, each one a thread in a rich and colorful tapestry. We will hear of immense coastlines and the world's highest tides, of curious laws and clever inventions, of the hardy creatures that roam its wilderness and the resilient people who call it home. There is nothing else you need to do, and nowhere else you need to be. Simply listen to the story as it unfolds. Let the words wash over you and allow yourself to drift. The story of Canada is, first and foremost, a story of scale. An epic written across a landscape so vast it challenges the imagination. It is the second largest country in the world by total area, a colossal territory surpassed only by Russia. This immense landmass stretches for 9,984,670 square kilometers, an expanse that covers 3,855,103 square miles, bridging the icy expanse of the Arctic with the temperate border of the United States. This sheer size dictates much of the nation's character, from its sparse population to the wild, untamed nature of its frontiers. This immense landmass is not a simple, solid block contained by neat borders. Rather, its edges are frayed and complex, meeting the sea in an intricate dance that gives Canada the longest coastline of any nation on Earth. This coastline runs for an astonishing 243,042 kilometers, or about 151,060 miles. A length so great that if a person were to walk it at a steady pace of 20 kilometers a day, which is about 12.5 miles, it would take them more than 33 years to complete the journey. It is a coastline that touches 3 different oceans: the stormy Atlantic in the east, the vast Pacific in the west, and the frozen, formidable Arctic in the north, each with its own unique character, ecosystems, and history. If one were to journey inward from this staggering coastline, the landscape would transform, trading salt spray for the placid sheen of fresh water. for Canada holds more lakes within its borders than every other nation on Earth combined. The exact number is difficult to pinpoint, but estimates suggest there are well over 2 million. A legacy of the last ice age, when colossal glaciers, kilometers thick, scoured the ancient rock of the Canadian Shield, their immense weight pressing down the land and their slow, grinding retreat, leaving behind millions of basins that filled with meltwater. These countless bodies of water are set within another of Canada's defining features, its immense forests, which cover roughly 40% of the country. This wooded expanse accounts for approximately 9% of all the world's forested land, a globally significant resource dominated by the Great Boreal Forest, or taiga, which sweeps across the northern latitudes in a nearly unbroken sea of spruce, pine, and fir. To truly comprehend this scale of preserved wilderness, one might look to Wood Buffalo National Park, a protected area so large it straddles the border of the province of Alberta and the Northwest Territories. It is the largest national park in Canada and the second largest in the world, a domain covering 44,807 square kilometers, or 17,300 square miles, making it larger than the entire country of Switzerland. Established in 1922 to protect the world's largest free-roaming herds of wood bison, it is a place of sprawling wetlands, boreal forests, and vast salt plains, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that stands as a testament to the raw, continental scale of Canadian nature. While the parks preserve a static image of wilderness, the country's eastern edge is a place of dramatic, constant motion, home to the highest tides on the planet. Here, in the Bay of Fundy, nestled between the provinces of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, the Atlantic Ocean puts on a breathtaking display of power twice each day. The unique shape and resonance of the bay amplify the tidal surge, causing a flow of 160 billion tons of seawater to rush in and out of the basin, a volume greater than the combined flow of all the world's freshwater rivers. This creates an average vertical tide range of 16 meters, or about 52 feet in some areas, exposing vast expanses of the ocean floor at low tide and inundating harbors and riverbeds at high tide, a rhythm that has shaped the land and the lives of its inhabitants for millennia. Far from the Atlantic's tidal surge, on the opposite side of the continent, in British Columbia, water expresses its power not in horizontal flows, but in a staggering vertical descent at Della Falls. Tucked away in the remote wilderness of Strathcona Provincial Park on Vancouver Island, it is Canada's highest waterfall, a majestic cataract that cascades down a mountainside in 3 distinct steps. The total drop is 440 meters, which is 1,443 feet, a height that makes it one of the tallest waterfalls in North America. Its remoteness adds to its allure. There are no roads leading to its base, and those who wish to witness its grandeur must undertake a challenging journey by boat and a long hike, ensuring that the falls remain a reward for the dedicated adventurer. This verticality in the landscape finds its ultimate expression not in falling water, but in the country's highest peak, a colossal giant of rock and ice named Mount Logan. Rising from the St. Elias Mountains in the southwestern corner of the Yukon, within the protected boundaries of Kluane National Park and Reserve. This mountain reaches an elevation of 5,959 meters, or 19,551 feet, above sea level. It is not a dramatic, pointed spire, but a massive, sprawling massif, believed to have the largest base circumference of any non-volcanic mountain on Earth. Its high plateau is a brutal, frigid environment where temperatures can plummet to minus 45 degrees Celsius, which is minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit, in midwinter. The mountain does not stand in isolation. It is the anchor of a vast kingdom of ice. The St. Elias Mountains, where Mount Logan resides, are home to the largest non-polar ice field in the world. This is a colossal expanse of interconnected glaciers and perpetual snow that sprawls across the border between the Yukon, British Columbia, and Alaska, a remnant of the last ice age that persists in the high altitudes. It is a landscape perpetually in motion, where rivers of ice grind their way through mountain valleys, carving the very shape of the continent in a process that has been ongoing for thousands of years. From these frozen heights, our journey across Canada's geography returns to the heart of the continent's freshwater seas, the Great Lakes, to find a feature as unique as any other, Manitoulin Island. Situated in Lake Huron, this is the largest freshwater island on the entire planet, an expanse of land covering 2,766 square kilometers, or 1,068 square miles. Its existence is a geological marvel, an extension of the Niagara Escarpment that rises from the lakebed. The island itself is a microcosm of the Canadian landscape, dotted with over 100 lakes of its own, some of which, in a fascinating display of nested geography, contain their own smaller islands, creating the curious phenomenon of islands within lakes on an island in a lake. The surprises of the Canadian landscape extend far beyond its lakes and mountains, venturing into realms that seem geographically misplaced, almost paradoxical. Deep in the northern reaches of Saskatchewan, far from any ocean, lies a spectacle one would sooner associate with the great deserts of the world, the Athabasca sand dunes. Stretching for approximately 100 kilometers, which is about 62 miles, along the southern shore of Lake Athabasca. This is the most northerly major sand dune formation on Earth. These are not small, gentle hills of sand. The dunes here can rise to a height of 30 meters, or nearly 100 feet, creating a stark, shifting, and profoundly beautiful desert-like environment in the heart of the boreal forest. This unique ecosystem protected within a provincial park, is so sensitive and remote that it remains largely untouched, a testament to the continent's hidden diversity. From this remote and arid-seeming landscape, one can travel south and east to another remarkable sandy feature, this one defined not by its isolation, but by its popularity and its connection to the country's vast freshwater system. On the shores of Georgian Bay, an enormous bay of Lake Huron, lies Wasaga Beach, the longest freshwater beach in the world. For 14 kilometers, which is nearly 8.7 miles, a ribbon of pale sand curves along the clear, cool waters of the lake, creating a summer playground that draws visitors from across the nation. It is a place where the immense scale of the Great Lakes feels as boundless as any ocean. Yet the water is sweet, and the tides are non-existent, a unique coastal experience born from Canada's lacustrine heart. The sun that warms the sands of Wasaga Beach shines brightest in a town far away on the prairies. While Canada is often stereotyped as a land of ice and snow, it is also a country of brilliant, unending skies, particularly in a place like Estevan, Saskatchewan. This small city, located in the southern part of the province, holds the distinction of being one of the sunniest places in the nation, basking in an average of 2,435 hours of bright sunshine each year. This abundance of light shapes the character of the prairies, fueling the vast agricultural lands and instilling a sense of openness and expanse that is as much a part of the Canadian identity as the deep, shaded forests. That prairie sun shines down upon soil that is, geologically speaking, relatively new. But beneath it, and beneath much of central and eastern Canada, lies the ancient heart of the continent itself, the Canadian Shield. This immense region of exposed Precambrian rock is a geological marvel, containing some of the oldest rocks on the planet, some dating back over 4 billion years. The Shield is not a single feature, but a colossal mosaic of ancient mountain ranges worn down by eons of erosion, a rugged, rolling landscape of rock, forest, and water. It was the relentless grinding of glaciers during the last ice age that scraped the Shield down to its rocky bones, gouging out millions of basins that would later fill with water, creating the very lakes that have come to define so much of the country. This immense, rocky, and waterlogged terrain of the Shield is beautiful, but largely inhospitable to agriculture and large-scale settlement, which helps explain another fundamental truth about the nation: its profound emptiness. For all its vast size, Canada has one of the lowest population densities in the world, with an average of only about 4 people for every square kilometer of land. This number is, of course, an average, with most of the population clustered in cities along the southern border, leaving the majority of the country's 9.98 million square kilometers, or 3.85 million square miles, as a vast, sparsely populated wilderness. This emptiness is not a void. Rather, It is filled with the immense forests that cover roughly 40% of the nation's landmass. These forests, primarily the Great Circumpolar Boreal Forest, represent about 9% of the world's total forest cover, a globally significant ecosystem that acts as a vital carbon sink and a sanctuary for wildlife. This sea of trees stretches from the Atlantic to the Yukon, a near unbroken canopy that is the wild heart of the nation. Yet, even this vast forested mainland is not the final frontier of Canadian territory. To the north lies the Arctic archipelago, a sprawling collection of islands that represents a significant portion of the country's landmass and contains some of the largest islands on the planet. Here, in the frigid waters of the Arctic Ocean, lie Baffin Island, the 5th largest island in the world, Victoria Island, the 8th largest, and Ellesmere Island, the 10th largest. These are colossal landscapes of tundra, ice caps, and fjords, worlds unto themselves, characterized by a stark, austere beauty and an extreme climate where the sun disappears for months in winter and circles the sky without setting in summer. Connecting the disparate and distant populated regions of this immense country, from the Atlantic shores to the Pacific coast, is a monumental feat of engineering. The Trans-Canada Highway. Officially opened in 1962, it is one of the world's longest national highways, a ribbon of asphalt stretching for nearly 8,000 kilometers, or about 5,000 miles. It is more than just a road. It is a unifying artery, a physical link that stitches the provinces together, allowing travelers to experience the dramatic shifts in landscape from the rolling hills of the Maritimes through the ancient rock of the Canadian Shield in Ontario, across the vast, open skies of the prairies, and over the formidable mountain ranges of the Rockies. For those who wish to experience the country at a slower, more intimate pace, there is another, even longer, connector. The Great Trail, formerly known as the Trans-Canada Trail, is the longest recreational trail in the world, a network of multi-use paths that spans over 24,000 kilometers, which is more than 15,000 miles. It is a trail system that winds its way through every province and territory, connecting 15,000 communities and allowing Canadians and visitors alike to walk, cycle, paddle, or ski their way across the nation's incredibly diverse terrain, from urban waterfronts to the most remote and breathtaking wilderness. Our journey across the vast Canadian landscape continues to its most extreme northern point, to a place that exists at the very edge of the inhabited world. This is Canadian Forces Station Alert, located on the northeastern tip of Ellesmere Island in Nunavut, a place so far north it is often simply called Alert. It holds the distinction of being the most northerly, permanently inhabited settlement on Earth, situated just 817 kilometers, or about 508 miles, from the geographic North Pole. Life here is a study in extremes. For 4 months in the winter, the sun never rises above the horizon, plunging the landscape into a perpetual polar night, while for another 4 months in summer, it never sets, circling the sky in an endless day. The temperatures are equally punishing, with winter averages hovering around -33 degrees Celsius or -27 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind chill making it feel colder still. Alert is not a town in the traditional sense, but a military signals intelligence facility and a weather station, a lonely outpost of humanity in the vast, frozen expanse of the high Arctic. A place where the primary concern is not the clock, but the calendar, marking the slow passage of the dark and light seasons. The frigid, ice-choked waters surrounding Eilert and the rest of the Arctic archipelago are a world away from the temperate climes of southern Canada. But they are teeming with life, including some of the most iconic and formidable creatures on the planet. Canada is a global stronghold for the polar bear, the great white bear of the north. It is estimated that approximately 2/3 of the world's entire polar bear population, which numbers around 25,000, resides within Canadian territory. These magnificent predators are uniquely adapted to the Arctic environment, with their thick blubber, dense fur, and large paws that act like snowshoes, making them powerful swimmers and relentless hunters on the sea ice. Their existence is intrinsically linked to the ice, which they depend on as a platform to hunt seals, their primary food source, making them a potent symbol of the fragility of the Arctic ecosystem in a changing climate. The waters that these bears patrol are also home to a breathtaking diversity of marine mammals, including an incredible array of whales. There are approximately 35 different species of whales that can be found in Canadian waters, from the Atlantic to the Pacific and to the Arctic. These range from the small, sociable beluga whales that gather in the thousands in Arctic estuaries, their white skin and melodic calls earning them the nickname canaries of the sea, to the enormous blue whale, the largest animal that has ever lived, which can be found in the waters of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. The Pacific coast is home to majestic pods of orcas, while the Atlantic hosts the critically endangered North Atlantic right whale. This rich diversity makes Canada's 3 coastlines some of the most spectacular whale-watching destinations in the world. While the polar bear is a powerful symbol of the Canadian wilderness, the animal that has come to represent the nation itself is a much humbler, though no less industrious, creature, the beaver. This large, semi-aquatic rodent was officially recognized as an emblem of Canada in 1975, but its significance in the country's history runs deeper. The quest for beaver pelts, prized in Europe for making fashionable felt hats, was the driving force behind the North American fur trade, an economic engine that fueled centuries of exploration and settlement, shaping the very course of Canadian history. The beaver's incredible ability to engineer its environment, building dams and lodges that transform landscapes, has also made it a symbol of ingenuity and perseverance. Interestingly, the beaver is not Canada's only national animal. It shares the honor with the Canadian horse, a sturdy and resilient breed that was declared the national horse in 2002, a nod to its own important role in the nation's agricultural and pioneering past. Beyond the beaver ponds and forests, the Canadian wilderness is home to another giant of the animal kingdom, the moose. Canada has the largest population of moose in the world. These towering members of the deer family are a common sight in every province and territory, except for Prince Edward Island. An adult bull moose can stand 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh over 500 kilograms or about 1,100 pounds, with a magnificent rack of antlers that can span nearly 2 meters across. Their immense size and lanky, almost prehistoric appearance make them a truly awe-inspiring sight in the Canadian backcountry. In the far north, another remarkable creature has adapted to survive the harsh Arctic conditions, the muskox. These shaggy, horned mammals are relics of the last ice age, having roamed the tundra alongside woolly mammoths. Their most incredible adaptation is their coat, which consists of long, coarse guard hairs and a soft, dense undercoat known as kivyut. This kivyut is one of the finest and warmest natural fibers in the world, 8 times warmer than sheep's wool and finer than cashmere, allowing the muskox to withstand the brutal Arctic winters where temperatures regularly plummet far below freezing. This precious fiber is shed naturally each spring and is gathered by Inuit communities to be spun into luxurious yarn, a sustainable and culturally significant practice. The bounty of Canadian wildlife is not confined to its lands and icy waters. The Atlantic coast, in particular, has a long history of incredible marine harvests. In 1977, off the coast of Nova Scotia, a fisherman hauled in a truly astonishing catch, the world's largest documented lobster. This colossal crustacean weighed an incredible 20.14 kilograms, or 44.4 pounds, and was estimated to be over 100 years old. While such giants are exceedingly rare today, the catch serves as a reminder of the historical abundance of the North Atlantic fisheries, which have been a cornerstone of the region's economy and culture for centuries. Back on land and roaming the vast tundra and boreal forests of the north are the caribou. Canada is home to about half of the world's barren ground caribou, a species that undertakes some of the longest land migrations on the planet. These great herds, sometimes numbering in the tens of thousands, are a vital part of the northern ecosystem and hold immense cultural significance for the indigenous peoples who have depended on them for millennia. However, the story of the caribou in recent decades has become one of concern, as many herds are now in a state of steep decline due to a combination of factors, including habitat loss and climate change, making their conservation a pressing national issue. The human story in this vast landscape begins not with European explorers, but with the first peoples, whose ancestors have inhabited these lands for thousands of years. The very name of the country is a testament to this deep history. The word Canada is not of French or English origin. It is derived from the St. Lawrence Iroquoian word Kanata, which simply means village or settlement. In 1535, while exploring the St. Lawrence River, French explorer Jacques Cartier was directed by two indigenous youths to the Kanata of Stadacona, the site of present-day Quebec City. Cartier misinterpreted the word, using it to refer to the entire region, and the name stuck, eventually being adopted for the entire country. This linguistic legacy is a fundamental reminder that the nation's story is built upon a foundation of indigenous heritage. As the country evolved, it became a complex tapestry of cultures and languages, a reality that is formally recognized in its official status as a bilingual nation. Both English and French are the official languages of the Parliament of Canada, the federal courts, and all federal institutions. This policy of bilingualism reflects the country's historical roots, born from the imperial ambitions of both France and Britain. While English is the majority language across most of the country, French remains the mother tongue of millions of Canadians, concentrated primarily in the province of Quebec, but also found in vibrant communities across the nation. This linguistic duality is a defining, though often challenging, aspect of the Canadian identity. The nation's sense of self is also captured in its official motto, Amari usque ad mare, a Latin phrase that translates to from sea to sea. Drawn from Psalm 72, verse 8 of the Bible, it was adopted as part of the national coat of arms in 1921. The motto powerfully evokes the immense geographical scope of the country, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean in the east to the Pacific Ocean in the west. In recent years, as awareness of Canada's vast northern frontier has grown, an unofficial, more inclusive version of the motto has gained currency. From sea to sea to sea, acknowledging the nation's third coastline on the Arctic Ocean. The most recognizable symbol of this coast-to-coast nation is, without a doubt, its national flag. The iconic red and white flag with a single stylized maple leaf at its center was officially adopted on February 15, 1965. Its creation was a deliberate act of nation-building, intended to replace the Canadian Red Ensign, which featured the British Union, Jack, and was seen by many as a symbol of the country's colonial past. The Great Flag Debate of 1964 was a passionate and sometimes divisive period in Canadian politics, but it resulted in a design that has become one of the most beloved and instantly recognizable national flags in the world. A simple yet powerful emblem of Canadian identity and independence. Beyond symbols, and language, a more modern and perhaps surprising characteristic of the Canadian population is its high level of educational attainment. Canada is the most educated country in the world, with over 60% of its adult population holding a post-secondary degree. This commitment to education is a cornerstone of Canadian society and a significant driver of its economy, fostering innovation and a skilled workforce capable of competing in a globalized world. This modern, educated society has not forgotten its more rugged, pioneering roots, which are celebrated each year in a grand festival on the prairies known as the Calgary Stampede. Billed as the greatest outdoor show on Earth, it is a celebration of Western Canadian heritage and rodeo culture. It was at the Stampede in 1923 that one of its most thrilling and chaotic events was born: the chuck wagon race. The idea was conceived by a rancher named Guy Weddick, who envisioned a race that would capture the spirit of the Old West, when pioneers would race their wagons to stake a claim on a new piece of land. The result is a thundering spectacle of horses, wagons, and outriders that has become a signature event of the Stampede and a unique Canadian sporting tradition. The nation's cultural contributions are not limited to rodeo. In the more refined world of performing arts, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet holds a place of significant historical importance. Founded in 1939, it is the oldest continuously operating ballet company in all of North America. It received its royal charter from Queen Elizabeth II in 1953 and has since grown into an internationally renowned company, celebrated for its artistic excellence and its uniquely Canadian repertoire. The city of Winnipeg is also a center for another very different art form. The Winnipeg Art Gallery, known as Wag-Kamajuk, houses the world's largest public collection of contemporary Inuit art. The collection includes more than 13,000 sculptures, drawings, prints, and textiles created by Inuit artists from the Canadian Arctic. The gallery's new Kamajuk building, which opened in 2021, is a stunning architectural space designed to celebrate and showcase this incredible art form, providing a vital connection between the culture of the North and the people of the South. This rich collection of Inuit art is just one thread in the incredibly diverse cultural fabric of Canada. The 2016 census revealed that Canadians reported having more than 250 different ethnic ancestries. This multiculturalism is a defining feature of modern Canada, a nation built by waves of immigration from every corner of the globe. From the foundational cultures of the Indigenous peoples, the French and the British, to the vibrant contributions of European, Asian, African, and Latin American immigrants, the country is a mosaic of traditions, cuisines, and perspectives, a reality that is officially enshrined in the government's policy of multiculturalism. This diversity is expressed in countless ways, including in the monumental art of the First Nations of the Pacific Northwest. In 1956, a towering totem pole was raised in Victoria, British Columbia, in Beacon Hill Park. Carved by the renowned Kwakwakawaku artist Mungo Martin and his team, it stood at a height of 38.7 meters, or 127 feet, and was, at the time of its raising, the world's tallest freestanding totem pole. While other taller poles have been raised since, this magnificent pole remains a powerful symbol of the enduring artistic and cultural heritage of the indigenous peoples of the coast, a heritage that predates the arrival of Europeans by thousands of years. Indeed, the first Europeans to reach the shores of what is now Canada were not the French or the English, but the Norse. Around the year 1000 AD, Viking explorers sailed from Greenland and established a small settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows on the northern tip of the island of Newfoundland. Archaeological evidence uncovered in the 1960s confirmed the presence of Norse-style turf-walled buildings, a smithy, and artifacts, providing concrete proof of a European presence in the Americas nearly 500 years before the voyages of Christopher Columbus. The settlement was short-lived, but it represents the very first chapter in the long and complex story of European interaction with this continent. While the Norse were the first Europeans to arrive, their brief settlement left little lasting impact on the course of history. The era of sustained European exploration and colonization began nearly 5 centuries later, driven by the imperial ambitions of nations like England and France. A pivotal figure in this next chapter was an Italian navigator sailing under the English flag named Giovanni Caboto, better known to history as John Cabot. In the year 1497, just 5 years after Columbus's first voyage, Cabot set sail across the North Atlantic in a small ship called the Matthew, seeking a westward route to Asia. He made landfall somewhere on the east coast of North America, likely on the island of Newfoundland or Cape Breton Island. While he found no silks or spices, he did find waters so teeming with codfish that his crew reported being able to catch them simply by lowering baskets into the sea. This discovery of a seemingly inexhaustible fishing ground would spark a European rush to the Grand Banks, drawing fleets from England, France, Spain, and Portugal, and establishing the first enduring economic link between Europe and what would become Canada. As European interest in the region grew, permanent settlements began to take root. One of the most significant of these was the city of Quebec, founded by Samuel de Champlain in 1608. Perched atop a dramatic cliff overlooking the St. Lawrence River, Quebec City was strategically vital for controlling the inland fur trade. To protect their burgeoning colonial outpost, the French built a series of fortifications, including a massive stone wall encircling the upper town. Today, Quebec City is the only walled city remaining in the Americas north of Mexico. Its historic district, with its cobblestone streets, 17th and 18th century stone houses, and formidable ramparts, has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a beautifully preserved monument to the era of New France. The primary economic engine of this colonial enterprise was the fur trade, a vast commercial network that stretched deep into the continental interior. At the heart of this enterprise was a remarkable organization, the Hudson's Bay Company. Chartered in 1670 by King Charles II of England, the HBC, as it is known, is the oldest commercial corporation in North America. It was granted a royal monopoly over trade in a vast territory known as Rupert's Land, an area that drained into Hudson Bay and covered a staggering portion of what is now western and northern Canada. For centuries, the company operated a network of trading posts, exchanging European goods like blankets, kettles, and firearms for the valuable beaver pelts and other furs supplied by indigenous trappers. This trade fundamentally reshaped the economic and social landscape of the continent, creating new alliances, rivalries, and dependencies. The immense profits to be made from the fur trade inevitably led to conflict. The 17th century was marked by a series of brutal conflicts that have become known as the Beaver Wars. These were not a single, continuous war, but a complex and shifting series of alliances and hostilities involving various indigenous nations, primarily the powerful Iroquois Confederacy and their European allies, the Dutch and the English on one side, and the French and their Wendat and Algonquin allies on the other. The wars were fought over control of the lucrative fur trade routes and trapping territories, and they had a devastating impact on the indigenous populations of the Great Lakes region, leading to widespread displacement, the destruction of entire nations, and a dramatic redrawing of the tribal map of North America. For centuries, the story of Canada unfolded as a collection of separate British colonies and vast, company-controlled territories. The idea of a unified nation was slow to develop. One of the last pieces to fall into place was the island of Newfoundland. Despite being one of the first places in North America to be settled by Europeans, Newfoundland long resisted joining the Canadian Confederation. It remained a separate, self-governing dominion of the British Empire until the mid-20th century. However, facing severe economic hardship after the Second World War, the people of Newfoundland and Labrador voted in two closely contested referendums to join Canada, officially becoming the country's 10th province on March 31st, 1949. This event marked the completion of the geographical and political entity of Canada as we know it today. While the fur trade shaped the nation's commercial beginnings, other ambitious engineering projects would later redefine its landscape. One of the most remarkable of these is the Rideau Canal. Completed in 1832, this 202-kilometer, or 126-mile, waterway connects the city of Ottawa on the Ottawa River to the city of Kingston on Lake Ontario. It was originally built for a military purpose, intended to provide a secure supply and communications route between Montreal and the Great Lakes, bypassing the vulnerable stretch of the St. Lawrence River that bordered the United States. The canal, with its 47 locks and 52 dams, was a marvel of 19th century engineering, all built by hand using manual labor. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a popular recreational waterway in the summer. In winter, a 7.8-kilometer, or nearly 5-mile, section of the canal that runs through downtown Ottawa freezes over and is transformed into the world's longest naturally frozen skating rink, a beloved national tradition known as the Rideau Canal Skateway. This tradition of transforming the landscape to suit human needs is, of course, a recurring theme in Canadian history. But it is in the country's kitchens that some of its most unique cultural transformations have occurred. From the bounty of its vast natural resources, Canada has created a distinctive culinary identity. Perhaps no single product is more emblematic of the nation than maple syrup. Canada is the world's largest producer of this sweet amber liquid, accounting for over 70% of the global supply. The province of Quebec is the heart of this production, where vast forests of sugar maples are tapped each spring in a tradition that has its roots in Indigenous practices. The process of collecting the watery sap and boiling it down to create concentrated syrup is a rite of spring known as sugaring off, a cherished cultural and culinary event. From the sweet, natural bounty of the maple forests comes another, more modern and distinctly savory Canadian creation: poutine. This now famous dish, a seemingly unlikely combination of French fries, fresh cheese curds, and rich brown gravy, has its origins in the rural dairy farming regions of Quebec in the 1950s. The exact story of its invention is debated, with several towns and restaurants laying claim to the title. But the culinary genius lies in the combination of textures and temperatures. The hot, crisp fries and the warm, savory gravy gently melt the fresh, squeaky cheese curds, creating a uniquely comforting and indulgent dish. For decades, poutine was a regional specialty, but in recent years, its popularity has exploded, and it is now considered by many to be Canada's national dish, a symbol of Quebecois culture that has been enthusiastically adopted across the country and around the world. The nation's talent for creating iconic food and drink extends to the cocktail glass as well. In 1969, a restaurant manager in the city of Calgary, Alberta, named Walter Chell, was tasked with creating a signature drink for the opening of a new Italian restaurant. Inspired by the flavors of the classic pasta dish, spaghetti alle vongole, or spaghetti with clams, he created a new cocktail. He started with vodka, added tomato juice, a splash of clam broth, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, and a blend of spices. He called his creation the Caesar. The drink was an immediate success, and its popularity quickly spread across the country. The combination of savory, spicy, and briny flavors, often served in a salt-rimmed glass with a celery stalk or a pickled bean as a garnish, has become a staple of Canadian bars and brunches. So beloved is the Caesar that it is now widely considered to be Canada's national cocktail, a uniquely Canadian concoction that continues to baffle and intrigue visitors. Beyond these savory delights, Canadians also have a notable sweet tooth, particularly for a certain fried pastry. Canada has the most donut shops per capita of any country in the world. This statistical curiosity reflects a deeply ingrained cultural habit, with national chains like Tim Hortons becoming ubiquitous symbols of Canadian life. The double-double, a coffee with 2 creams and 2 sugars, served alongside a donut, is a daily ritual for millions of people, a simple, comforting, and quintessentially Canadian experience. The nation's appetite for comfort food is further demonstrated by another surprising statistic. Canadians consume more macaroni and cheese per capita than any other nation on the planet. The familiar blue and yellow box of Kraft Dinner, as it is known in Canada, is a pantry staple in households across the country, a quick, easy, and affordable meal that has been a part of Canadian childhoods for generations. It is a cultural touchstone, a food so deeply embedded in the national psyche that it is often referred to simply as KD. The country's culinary creativity is not limited to processed foods. It also shines in the realm of homemade baked goods. One of the most beloved of these is the Nanaimo bar, a decadent, no-bake dessert bar that consists of 3 distinct layers: a crumbly base of graham cracker, coconut, and nuts, a sweet, creamy custard-flavored buttercream icing in the middle, and a rich, dark chocolate ganache on top. The treat is named after the city of Nanaimo on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, where the earliest known recipe was published in the 1950s. The Nanaimo bar is a classic of Canadian home baking, a staple of community bake sales, coffee shops, and family gatherings. Another uniquely Canadian food product is pea meal bacon, also sometimes known as Canadian bacon, though it is different from the version commonly found in the United States. True pea meal bacon is a type of back bacon made from lean, boneless pork loin that has been wet cured and then rolled in ground, dried yellow peas, or more commonly today, in cornmeal, which gives it a distinctive yellow, crispy crust. This style of bacon was developed in Toronto in the 19th century by a pork packer named William Davies, and it remains a beloved local specialty, famously served in thick slices on a soft bun at the St. Lawrence Market. Rounding out this culinary tour is a sophisticated and highly prized Canadian specialty, ice wine. This is a type of sweet dessert wine produced from grapes that have been left to freeze naturally on the vine. The water in the grapes freezes, but the sugars and other dissolved solids do not, resulting in a small amount of highly concentrated, intensely sweet juice when the frozen grapes are pressed. The process is risky and labor-intensive, requiring a hard frost to occur after the grapes have ripened, and the harvest must often take place in the middle of the night in frigid temperatures. Canada, particularly the Niagara Peninsula region of Ontario, has become the world's largest and most acclaimed producer of ice wine, a liquid gold that is a testament to the country's ability to turn its cold climate into a culinary advantage. From the kitchen and the bar, we turn to the workshop and the laboratory, where Canadian ingenuity has given the world a remarkable number of transformative inventions. In the summer of 1874, a young inventor named Alexander Graham Bell was working at his family's homestead in Brantford, Ontario. It was here, overlooking the Grand River, that he conceived the fundamental idea for the telephone. While the first successful transmission of speech would take place in his Boston laboratory 2 years later, Bell himself always considered Canada to be the birthplace of his most famous invention. This spirit of innovation continued in the realm of sports. In 1891, a Canadian physical education instructor named James Naismith was working at a training school in Springfield, Massachusetts. He was tasked with creating a new indoor game to keep his students active during the harsh New England winters. He devised a set of 13 basic rules, using peach baskets as hoops and a soccer ball as the first basketball. The game he invented, basketball, would go on to become one of the most popular sports in the world, a global phenomenon that began with a simple idea from a creative Canadian. The Canadian knack for invention extended from the gymnasium to the cold, snow-covered landscape, solving a problem that had vexed rural Canadians for generations: how to travel effectively in deep snow. The answer came from a mechanically gifted entrepreneur from Quebec named Joseph Armand Bombardier. Fascinated from a young age with the idea of creating a vehicle that could float on snow, he spent years tinkering with engines and track systems. In 1935, he developed and sold his first successful snowmobile, the B7, a larger multi-passenger vehicle. By the 1950s, with the development of smaller, lighter engines, he created the Ski-Doo, a personal recreational snowmobile that revolutionized winter travel and created an entirely new winter sport. His invention not only conquered the Canadian winter, but also became a global success, a testament to his perseverance and innovative spirit. Back in the city, another Canadian inventor was changing the way people lived and worked in their homes. In 1892, Thomas Ahern, a prominent inventor and businessman from Ottawa, hosted a dinner at the Windsor Hotel. The meal was remarkable not for the food itself, but for how it was cooked. Every dish had been prepared on a new device of his own invention, the electric cooking range. By harnessing the power of electricity for cooking, Ahern's invention would, over time, transform the modern kitchen, replacing the wood and coal stoves of the 19th century and paving the way for the electric ovens and stovetops that are standard in homes today. Canadian innovation also changed the way we see the world, quite literally. on the giant screen. In the 1960s, a group of Canadian filmmakers, including Graham Ferguson, Roman Croitor, and Robert Kerr, developed a new film projection system that used a massive screen and a unique rolling loop projector. Their goal was to create a more immersive and impactful viewing experience. They called their invention IMAX, an abbreviation for Image Maximum. The system debuted at Expo 67 in Montreal and was an immediate sensation, astounding audiences with its scale and clarity. Since then, IMAX has become a global leader in large-format cinema, transforming the movie-going experience and showcasing the power of Canadian technical and artistic creativity. Perhaps Canada's most significant contribution to the world of science and medicine came from a laboratory at the University of Toronto in the early 1920s. A team of researchers, led by Dr. Frederick Banting and including Charles Best, John MacLeod, and James Collip, was working to isolate the hormone that regulated blood sugar. In 1921, they successfully isolated this hormone, which they called insulin, from the pancreases of dogs. The following year, they administered the first successful injection to a 14-year-old boy who was dying from diabetes, saving his life. The discovery of insulin was a monumental medical breakthrough, transforming type 1 diabetes from a fatal disease into a manageable condition and saving millions of lives around the world. For their work, Banting and MacLeod were awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1923, a prize they famously shared with their colleagues Best and Collip. The legacy of groundbreaking medical research continued in the 1960s at the Ontario Cancer Institute in Toronto. There, two Canadian scientists, James Till and Ernest McCulloch, were conducting research on the effects of radiation on mice. Through their experiments, they were the first to provide evidence for the existence of stem cells, the remarkable master cells that have the ability to develop into many different types of cells in the body. Their discovery, published in 1963, laid the foundation for the entire field of stem cell research, a field that holds immense promise for treating a wide range of diseases and injuries, from cancer to heart disease to Parkinson's. While scientists were unlocking the secrets of the human body, other Canadian inventors were focused on more practical, everyday problems. One such inventor was Peter L. Robertson, a salesman from Ontario, who, in 1908, invented a new type of screw with a square-shaped socket in its head. The Robertson screw, or square drive screw, was a significant improvement over the traditional slot-headed screw. The square socket made it easier to drive the screw with one hand, and dramatically reduced the frustrating problem of the screwdriver slipping out and damaging the work surface. The Robertson screw became immensely popular in Canada, particularly in the construction and furniture industries, and remains a proud, if sometimes unheralded, Canadian invention. Another simple but brilliant invention came from a man named Norman Breakey in Toronto in 1940. Tired of the slow and laborious process of painting with a brush, he developed a new tool, a cylindrical applicator made of fabric mounted on a handle that could roll paint onto a surface quickly and evenly. The paint roller was a revolutionary idea that transformed the painting industry, making it faster and easier for both professionals and do-it-yourselfers to paint walls and ceilings. From the painter's toolkit, we move to the household garbage can, the site of another humble but indispensable Canadian invention. In the 1950s, Harry Wasilek of Winnipeg, Manitoba, along with Larry Hansen, invented the world's first disposable plastic garbage bag. They developed a new, stretchy, and waterproof form of polyethylene that was perfect for lining garbage cans, making waste disposal cleaner and more sanitary. Their invention, the familiar green garbage bag, has since become a ubiquitous household item around the globe. The spirit of Canadian innovation also powered the development of public transportation. While electric streetcars were being developed in several places at once, Canada was a pioneer in their practical application. In 1886, the city of Windsor, Ontario, established the first large-scale, commercially successful electric streetcar system in the country. Just 1 year after the first such system was demonstrated in Toronto. This new technology would revolutionize urban transit, allowing cities to expand and providing a new form of mobility for their citizens. Finally, Canadian ingenuity played a crucial role in wartime communications. During the Second World War, a Canadian inventor named Donald Hings was working on a portable radio signaling system for his mining company. When the war broke out, he was seconded to the Canadian military to redevelop his invention for battlefield use. The result was a two-way radio transceiver that was both portable and durable, a device he originally called a pack set. This invention, which would become famously known as the walkie-talkie, allowed for instant communication between soldiers in the field, revolutionizing battlefield tactics and coordination. It stands as another example of a practical, problem-solving Canadian invention that would have a global impact. Beyond the realm of the practical and the scientific, Canada also possesses a rich vein of the quirky, the unusual, and the downright strange, a collection of curious laws, customs, and places that add a unique and often humorous texture to the national identity. Delving into the country's legal codes, for instance, can unearth some truly peculiar statutes. One of the most surprising is a section of the criminal code that makes it illegal to produce, sell, or possess a crime comic. This law was passed in 1949 during a wave of public concern over the perceived negative influence of American comic books on Canadian youth. While the law is rarely, if ever, enforced today, it remains on the books, a fascinating relic of a past moral panic and a curious restriction on freedom of expression. The oddities of Canadian law are not confined to the federal level. They can also be found in the bylaws of small towns. In the charming seaside community of Souris, Prince Edward Island, a local ordinance once placed a rather specific restriction on winter fun. To prevent snowmen from obstructing the view of drivers at street corners, the town passed a bylaw making it illegal to build a snowman taller than 30 inches, or about 76 centimeters, on a corner lot. While intended as a simple traffic safety measure, the image of a police officer measuring a snowman with a tape measure has provided endless amusement. From snowmen to mythical creatures, Canadian law, or the lack thereof, has even touched upon the legendary Sasquatch. In the province of British Columbia, a place with a long and rich history of Sasquatch sightings, a persistent rumor holds that it is illegal to kill one of the hairy, ape-like creatures. While there is no specific law protecting the Sasquatch by name, the province's Wildlife Act makes it an offense to shoot a creature you cannot identify, providing a kind of backhanded legal protection for the elusive beast. The legal regulation of animals in Canada can be remarkably specific. In Fredericton, the capital city of New Brunswick, a local bylaw prohibits the carrying of a snake or a lizard on your person in public. The law does, however, make an exception for animals that are properly secured in a cage or container, ensuring that reptile enthusiasts can still transport their cold-blooded companions, just not on their shoulder, pirate style. The town of Petrolia, Ontario, once took its desire for peace and quiet to an extreme. A former bylaw in this historic oil town prohibited public whistling, singing, and shouting at all times. The rule was eventually repealed, but for a time, the citizens of Petrolia were legally obligated to maintain a level of public decorum that would make a librarian proud. Sometimes local customs, while not official laws, can be just as powerful and even more surprising. In the northern town of Churchill, Manitoba, a place famous for its large population of polar bears, residents have adopted a unique and potentially life-saving tradition. It is a widely accepted local practice to leave the doors of one's car unlocked, particularly during the autumn polar bear season. This is done so that if a pedestrian finds themselves in a sudden and dangerous encounter with a polar bear, they have a chance to quickly duck into a nearby vehicle to find safety. It is a remarkable example of community cooperation in the face of a constant and formidable danger. From the serious business of polar bear safety, we turn to the equally serious business of maple syrup. Canada's dominance in the global maple syrup market is so profound that the province of Quebec has established a strategic maple syrup reserve. Officially known as the Global Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve, this is a network of warehouses that stores millions of pounds of surplus syrup. Its purpose is to act as a global buffer, stabilizing prices and ensuring a consistent supply of maple syrup, even in years when production is poor. It is, in essence, a central bank for maple syrup, a uniquely Canadian institution that underscores the immense economic and cultural importance of this sweet, sticky commodity. The Canadian government's penchant for organization extends to the realm of fantasy as well. For millions of children around the world who write letters to Santa Claus each Christmas, Canada Post has provided a special and official address. Letters addressed to Santa Claus, North Pole, can be sent to the postal code HOH000. In a heartwarming national effort, thousands of volunteer postal elves work each year to ensure that every single letter, written in any language, receives a personal reply from Santa, a magical and logistical feat that brings the spirit of Christmas to life. The country's unusual and charming features also include some record-breaking, though perhaps not world-shaking, structures. In the small town of Rodney, Ontario, one can find what is believed to be the world's smallest jail. Built in the early 20th century, the tiny two-cell structure measures just 24.3 square meters, or about 270 square feet. It is a quaint and popular roadside attraction, a tiny piece of local history that has earned a disproportionately large reputation. From small structures to big wins, the city of Winnipeg, Manitoba, is home to one of Canada's most famously blustery locations. The intersection of Portage and Main, in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, is legendary for its fierce, bone-chilling winds, especially in the winter. The combination of a wide-open prairie landscape and the funneling effect of the tall buildings creates a microclimate that has become a part of Canadian folklore, a place where pedestrians battle the elements in a daily struggle against the relentless prairie wind. And just as the landscape shapes the culture, so too does the culture shape the symbols of the landscape. In the vast northern territory of Nunavut, even something as mundane as a license plate is infused with a unique sense of place. The license plates in Nunavut are not the standard rectangular shape found elsewhere. Instead, they are cut in the unmistakable shape of a polar bear, a clever and charming tribute to the iconic animal of the Arctic and a symbol of the territory's distinct identity. The Canadian landscape is not only dotted with quirky landmarks and shaped by unusual weather, it is also home to some of the most spectacular and unusual natural phenomena on the planet. Deep in the Interlake region of Manitoba, about 130 kilometers, or roughly 80 miles north of Winnipeg, lies a place known as the Narcisse Snake Dens. For most of the year, it is a quiet, unassuming area of scrubland and aspen forest. But for a few weeks every spring, it becomes the site of a truly mind-boggling spectacle. This area is home to the world's largest concentration of red-sided garter snakes. As the spring sun warms the frozen ground, tens of thousands of these snakes emerge from the limestone caverns where they have spent the long, cold winter hibernating. The ground itself seems to come alive, a writhing, slithering carpet of serpents. They emerge in such incredible numbers that they form enormous, tangled masses known as mating balls, where dozens of male snakes swarm a single, larger female. It is a strange and mesmerizing display of nature's power and peculiarity, a unique Canadian wildlife spectacle that has no parallel anywhere else on Earth. From the unusual spectacles of the natural world, we turn to the peculiar rules that govern the human one, starting with the use of money. In Canada, the Currency Act of 1985 sets legal limits on the number of coins that can be used in a single transaction. For example, a payment using only pennies is limited to 25 cents, while for nickels, the limit is $5. And for dimes, it is $10. While these rules are rarely enforced in casual transactions, they do exist to prevent someone from, for example, paying for a major purchase with an enormous sack of low-denomination coins, providing a legal framework to ensure that commerce remains reasonably convenient. Beyond the letter of the law, the spirit of the nation is often captured in its proudest symbols. One of the most enduring is not a building or a monument, but a ship, the Blue Nose. Launched in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, in 1921, the Blue Nose was a Grand Banks fishing and racing schooner. It was built to be a working vessel, hauling cod from the treacherous North Atlantic, but it was also designed for speed. In the 1920s and 30s, the ship raced for the International Fisherman's Trophy, a competition between the fastest fishing vessels from Canada and the United States. For nearly 2 decades, the Blue Nose was the undefeated champion, a source of immense pride for Nova Scotians and for all Canadians during a difficult economic time. It became a symbol of the nation's maritime heritage, of fine craftsmanship, and of a tenacious, winning spirit. So beloved is the Blue Nose that its graceful image has been immortalized on the Canadian 10-cent piece, the dime, since 1937, a constant and familiar reminder of this legendary vessel. The Canadian legal system, however, has its share of oddities that seem to belong to a much earlier era. For example, it is still technically illegal in Canada to pretend to practice witchcraft. Section 365 of the Criminal Code makes it an offense to fraudulently pretend to use any kind of witchcraft, sorcery, enchantment, or conjuration. This law was not designed to prosecute actual witches, but rather to protect the public from fortune tellers and scam artists who claim to have magical powers. While it may seem archaic, the law remains on the books, a curious reminder of a time when the line between the supernatural and the criminal was drawn differently. In a similar vein of antiquated laws, it is also a specific offense under the Criminal Code of Canada to challenge someone to a duel. This law, a holdover from the 19th century when affairs of honor were sometimes settled with pistols at dawn, may seem utterly irrelevant today. However, its continued existence serves as a legal prohibition against a very specific and ritualized form of violence, a formal declaration that in modern Canada, disputes are to be settled in courtrooms, not on dueling grounds. Even the monarch is not exempt from the peculiarities of Canadian law. Another section of the Criminal Code makes it an offense to commit an act with the intent to alarm Her Majesty the Queen. This means that it is, quite literally, illegal to scare the Queen while she is in Canada. While the chances of ever having the opportunity to do so are vanishingly small, the law stands as a symbol of the special legal status afforded to the head of state. Having explored the legal and cultural quirks of the nation, we can turn our attention back to the language of money itself. The Canadian $1 coin, introduced in 1987, is universally known as the loonie. This nickname arose because the coin features a depiction of a common loon, a bird whose haunting call is a classic sound of the Canadian wilderness. The name was so catchy and popular that it quickly became the unofficial, and now virtually official, name for the coin. When a $2 coin was introduced in 1996, a similar naming tradition followed. The new bimetallic coin was playfully and logically nicknamed the toonie, a portmanteau of two and loony. The name stuck immediately, and the terms loonie and toonie are now a ubiquitous part of the Canadian lexicon, a unique and charming piece of monetary slang. The nation's love for its vast landscapes is also reflected in its commitment to recreation and sport. Canada has hosted the prestigious Olympic Games on 3 separate occasions, showcasing its cities and its seasons to the world. In 1976, Montreal hosted the Summer Olympics. In 1988, the city of Calgary welcomed the world for the Winter Olympics. And in 2010, Vancouver and Whistler jointly hosted another spectacular Winter Games. Each of these events left a lasting legacy of sporting venues and national pride, reinforcing Canada's status as a major player in the international sporting community. The country's sporting history runs deep, particularly in the game of golf. The Royal Montreal Golf Club, founded in 1873, holds the distinction of being the oldest officially recognized golf club in North America. Its establishment marked the formal beginning of the sport in Canada and the United States, and it has since played a central role in the history of Canadian golf, hosting numerous national and international championships. Of course, no discussion of Canadian sport would be complete without mentioning ice hockey. While forms of the game were played on frozen ponds for years, the first organized indoor ice hockey game took place in Montreal on March 3, 1875, at the Victoria skating rink. This game was a pivotal moment in the sport's development, as it was played with a set of published rules and featured a puck instead of a ball, innovations that would become standard. From this humble beginning in a Montreal rink, ice hockey would grow into Canada's national winter sport and a passionate obsession for millions across the country. The inventive spirit of Canadians extends even to the equipment used in other popular sports. In 1883, a Canadian baseball player named Arthur Irwin was playing shortstop when he broke the middle finger on his left hand. To protect his injured finger, while still being able to catch the ball, he fashioned a heavily padded glove, much larger than the simple, thin gloves that were common at the time. He found that the new glove not only protected his hand, but also allowed him to catch harder-hit balls more easily. His creation, the baseball glove as we know it today, was a significant innovation that would fundamentally change the defensive side of the game, making fielding safer and more athletic. The nation's financial infrastructure also has a unique history. The Bank of Canada, the country's central bank, was established in 1935. What is interesting about its origin is that it began its life as a privately owned institution. The government of the day believed that a central bank owned by private shareholders would be more independent from political influence. However, this model was short-lived. Just a few years later, in 1938, the Bank of Canada was nationalized and brought under public ownership, a status it has maintained ever since, responsible for managing the country's monetary policy and issuing its currency. Canada's economic story in the modern era is closely tied to its immense natural resources, particularly its vast reserves of oil. The country is a global energy superpower, and the United States is its largest customer. The U.S. buys more oil from Canada than from any other single country, a fact that underscores the deep economic integration and energy partnership between the two neighboring nations. This trade is a cornerstone of the Canadian economy, though it also places the country at the center of ongoing global debates about energy security and environmental sustainability. For those seeking to connect with the government that oversees this vast and complex nation, there is a surprisingly simple and memorable way to do so. The official primary telephone number for the Government of Canada is 1-800-0-CANADA. This clever use of a toll-free number with a phonetic spelling of the country's name makes it easy for citizens to remember how to access government services and information. A small but thoughtful piece of public service branding. The citizens who use this service are part of a highly educated populace. The literacy rate in Canada is over 99%, a testament to the country's robust public education system and its commitment to ensuring that all its citizens have the fundamental skills needed to participate fully in modern society. This high level of literacy is a key factor in the nation's social and economic development. Managing a country of such immense size also requires a sophisticated understanding of time itself. Canada is so wide that it is spanned by 6 different time zones. From the Newfoundland time zone in the east, which is a unique half-hour zone, to the Pacific time zone in the west, a journey across the country involves repeatedly resetting one's watch. The 6 zones are Newfoundland, Atlantic, Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific, a temporal reflection of the nation's vast geographical breadth. However, not all parts of the country follow the same rules when it comes to time. The province of Saskatchewan is a notable exception to the practice of daylight saving time. For most of the year, Saskatchewan is aligned with the Central Time Zone. But because it does not spring forward in the summer, it effectively shifts into the Mountain Time Zone, remaining on Central Standard Time year-round. This quirk of timekeeping is a source of both pride and occasional confusion, a reflection of the province's independent spirit. The Canadian climate is not just a matter of cold and snow. It is also capable of producing extreme and dramatic weather events. One of the most astonishing of these occurred in Buffalo Gap, Saskatchewan, where the heaviest rainfall in Canadian history was recorded. In a single, intense cloudburst, the town was deluged with 250 millimeters, or nearly 10 inches, of rain in less than an hour. This incredible downpour is a stark reminder of the power and unpredictability of the weather on the Canadian prairies. The prairies have also been the site of another, more destructive weather phenomenon. On June 30th, 1912, a massive and powerful tornado tore through the city of Regina, Saskatchewan. The storm, now known as the Regina Cyclone, was the deadliest tornado in Canadian history, killing 28 people, injuring hundreds, and leaving a quarter of the city's population homeless. The event left a deep scar on the city and remains a powerful reminder of the destructive force of nature. As of the year 2024, the population of this vast and diverse nation has surpassed 41 million people. This number reflects a country that is constantly growing and changing, fueled by both natural increase and a steady flow of immigration from around the world. It is a population that is increasingly urban and multicultural, yet one that remains deeply connected to the vast, wild landscapes that continue to define the Canadian experience. This modern, multicultural nation is governed as a constitutional monarchy, a political system that links it to its colonial past while affirming its modern independence. The head of state is King Charles III, who reigns as the King of Canada. However, his role is largely ceremonial, with political power residing in the hands of the democratically elected Parliament of Canada and its Prime Minister. This system, which combines a symbolic link to the Crown with the practicalities of a parliamentary democracy, is a defining feature of the Canadian political identity. Finally, our journey across Canada concludes where it began, with the iconic imagery of the North. In the territory of Nunavut, the license plates are shaped like polar bears, a whimsical and fitting symbol for a land where these magnificent creatures roam. In Ocean Falls, British Columbia, a remote coastal community, the rain is a near constant companion, making it one of the rainiest places in North America. At Naquacto Rapids, also in British Columbia, the tidal currents are among the strongest and fastest in the world, a testament to the raw power of the coastal waters. And in Winnipeg, the art gallery's vast collection of Inuit art provides a window into the soul of the Arctic's first peoples. All these facts, from the quirky to the profound, from the scientific to the historical, are threads in the rich and complex tapestry of Canada, a nation of immense scale, surprising diversity, and enduring ingenuity. And so, our journey across this immense and varied land finds its gentle end. The story, woven from 100 threads of history and nature, is now told. Across the continent, a deep and profound quiet settles. From the Atlantic coast, where the waves whisper against the ancient rocks, to the Pacific shores, where the great forests stand in silent silhouette against the stars, the country is at peace. Above the sleeping tundra and the silent, frozen lakes, the northern lights may be starting their slow, silent dance, painting the dark sky in shades of green and violet. The cities have dimmed their lights. The great rivers flow quietly toward the sea, and the vast, wild heart of the country is at rest. All the tales have been told, and all the facts have found their place, leaving only the stillness of the night. And now, it is time for rest. May your dreams be as peaceful as a northern lake at midnight. Sleep well.